Today on Spiritual Awakening Radio, Prem Patra Radhasoami, the spiritual or love discourses about the Lord of the Soul. The term Radhaswami means Soul Lord or Lord of the Soul. It's a name for God used by some in India, referring to the Supreme Being in the ultimate state, the ultimate reality, state beyond all the planes, beyond the seven heavens. In some forms of Sant Mat, Radhaswami is the mantra, is the Simran word, given at the time of initiation. It's not a secret mantra, but a public domain mantra, if you will. In other forms of Sant Mat, a set of 5 secret names are revealed at the time of initiation, referring to or corresponding to 5 levels of God at 5 planes or heavens, levels of creation. But there is one God, not 5 gods. There's a hymn of Swami Ji Maharaj and the Sarbachan Radha Swami poetry that describes Radha Swami as manifesting on the 5th plane, and one of the 5 names is referred to as the manifestation of Radhaswami at the 5th plane, and then the hymn goes on to talk about Radhaswami manifesting on the 4th plane, and also includes the presiding deity of the 4th plane, and so on, and is saying that Radhaswami is the 5 names, the 5 levels, 5 different levels of God on 5 different planes of consciousness. And that is why Garab Das, a spiritual successor and famous disciple of Swami Ji Maharaj of Agra, once said, when you sing the name Radhaswami, you do the Simran, or the remembrance of the 5 names. In the Garab Das branch of Radhaswami, instead of using the 5 names or Radhaswami, they use both as interchangeable. One can repeat the name Radhaswami, or one can repeat the 5 names, because they are all names of the one God. The following is from the last words of Swami Ji Maharaj. Addressing Lala Seth Pratap Singh, Swami Ji Maharaj observed, "The faith I had given out was that of Satnam and Anami. The Radhaswami faith has been introduced by Huzur Maharaj Saligram. You should also let it continue. Satsang must go on. Satsang shall spread far and wide in future," said Swami Ji Maharaj. In his book Petals of Love, Agam Prasad Mathur writes, "No devotee was so near and dear to Swami Ji Maharaj as Huzur Maharaj Rai Saligram Bahadur was. In his letters to Huzur Maharaj, Swami Ji addressed him as Aziz Az Jan, meaning dearer than self. In Ecstasy, Grace, and Mercy, Swami Ji Maharaj once said, I do not know whether I am Rai Saligram's guru or he is mine." The name Radhaswami came to Huzur Maharaj Rai Saligram. It was revealed to him from within as a name for the ultimate reality, the Lord of Love, the Lord of the Soul, the ocean of love, or God, and became a very powerful high holy name of the Most High God used by some in India. Today on Spiritual Awakening Radio, readings from Prem Patra Radhasoami, or the Spiritual Love Discourses on the Lord of the Soul, authored by Huzur Maharaj Rai Saligram. I'll also share some quotes from Radhaswami Mat Prakash, another spiritual classic by Huzur, a kind of architect of the Radhaswami faith, who wrote many wonderful books. In fact, he was one of the first great prolific writers of modern times, creating a kind of encyclopedia of Sant mysticism, documenting, spelling out all of the teachings. A very wonderful, extremely important series of volumes, a 6-volume set known as Prem Patra Radhasoami, the spiritual love discourses about the Lord of the Soul, or Radha Swami. This is from Volume 1 of Prem Patra Radhasoami by Huzur Maharaj, Saligram, Bahadur, a main spiritual successor of Swami Ji Maharaj, the great saint of Agra, India. Devotional practices. It should be noted that all the following activities are included in devotional practices. 1. Simran, the repetition of the holy name. In this case, the repetition of the holy name Radhaswami, Radhaswami, Radhaswami. 2. Simran and Dhyan, the repetition of the holy name along with the contemplation of the holy form of the Master. 3. Bhajan, or listening to the inner sound in meditation. 4. Recitation of the holy books, or listening to their recital in Satsang intelligently. Here I assume holy books especially refers to the Radhaswami poetry volumes of Seth Shivdayal Singh, also known as Swami Ji Maharaj. I suppose it could also refer to the Adi Granth or Tulsi Sahib's hymns or some other sant, but the Radhaswami poetry holds a special place in the Radhaswami tradition. 5. Discussing the principles of the Radhaswami faith, or listening to such discussion. 6. Thinking about and reflecting upon matters pertaining to the Radhaswami faith and its practices, and pondering them deeply. And the 7th devotional practice, described by Huzur Maharaj in his Volume 1 of Prem Patra Radhasoami, examining the ways of one's mind and senses daily, or self-introspection, in other words, keeping them under control as far as possible, unquote. Those are the 7 key devotional practices of Sant Mat, also known as the Radhaswami faith. Simran, the repetition of the holy name. 2. Simran with Dhyan, repetition of the holy name along with the contemplation of the holy form of the living Master. 3. Bhajan, listening to the audible life stream or sound current during meditation. 4th, recitation of holy books, or listening to their recital in satsang intelligently. 5th, discussing the principles of the Radhaswami faith, or listening to such discussion. 6th, thinking about and reflecting upon matters pertaining to the Radhaswami faith and its practices, and pondering them deeply. And 7th, once again, examining the ways of one's mind and senses daily, keeping them under control as far as possible, unquote, or, in other words, self-introspection, sitting down and pondering what's going on in your life and your daily activities, your daily thoughts, what you're going through, what your thoughts are, your processes are, and keeping everything under control as far as possible from the point of view of someone who is a disciple or satsangi, practicing the path of the masters, following a spiritual way of life. The following is from Volume 2 of Prem Patra Radhasoami, the spiritual love discourses about the Lord of the Soul. Another volume in that 6-volume set, that glorious 6-volume set, authored by Huzur Maharaj, Saligram. a key collection of volumes of the Sant tradition. If due to the play of some past or present karma, a devotee is not able to secure concentration and quietude of mind and spirit, he should not feel disappointed, nor should he think that Radhaswami Dayal's grace is denied to him. The merciful or compassionate Lord of the soul's grace is denied to him. On the contrary, he should, in this predicament, apply himself to spiritual practices with greater persistence and care. If there is no success in bhajan, meditating upon the inner sound, he should engage himself in dhyan, visualizing the form of one's teacher, the master. And if there is no success even in dhyan, he should perform simran, repetition of the holy name, with dun. In other words, chanting the holy name Radhaswami musically, as well as reciting hymns. Gradually, this cycle would pass away and bliss would be experienced in spiritual practices as before, in meditation practices as before. In order that love and faith are not shaken at such a time, it is necessary to take particular care of them by reading hymns and discourses, or else he would not even be able to perform satisfactorily simran and singing the name Radhaswami. If hymns are recited intelligently, and mind and spirit are, with the help of the form of the Master, turned towards and fixed at the various higher regions named in those hymns, then this practice can also afford to some extent the bliss of bhajan and dhyan. For this reason, it is proper first to recite a couple of hymns of Sarbachan poetry relating to admonition, and then hymns relating to prem, or love, and the inner secrets of the path. By this the mind would be somewhat withdrawn and fixed inwards, and bliss would also be experienced." Unquote. Said Huzur Maharaj, Rai Saligram Bahadur. This I find to be such a wonderful section of the Prem Patra Radhasoami. Here you have some spiritual techniques that you can do when you can't meditate, when you're not having success at meditation. So even without being able to go within, you have a practice that you can do here and now, no matter what. I just find this to be so wonderful that there are techniques that one can use right here in this physical plane of consciousness. I think some have a kind of misconception that Sant Mat begins on the astral plane, that a bend in the universe itself, and then the path begins. But that is a kind of false belief, or a kal trap in the labyrinth of illusion, because the grace of the master power extends to you all the way to this life, in this world, in this physical plane, in the body. And the path begins here too, with love and devotion, feelings of love and devotion for the teachings and for the master and for the sacred name, and a love for meditation. That all starts here and now on this plane, the physical plane, referred to here in the teachings of Huzur Maharaj as Pindadesh, physical plane, material universe. And so it's important to keep that in mind, that it's not a matter of leaving the body and then the path begins. The path begins here in this plane, in the waking state of consciousness, with a desire to follow the teachings of the Master, to implement the meditation, to feel the bliss of meditation, to have a feeling of bhakti as you repeat the sacred name or names of God. That all begins here and now, and is something that one can do, as Huzur here is saying, even when you're having no success in meditation, you're going through a dry spell, if you will, with your meditation practice. Huzur Maharaj here is saying, sing the name Radhaswami. Here he means verbally. Now, for the most part, a sacred name or Simran word, be it the 5 names, be it Radhaswami, or be it some other secret names used by some branches of Sant, mostly that's done as a manas jap, or a mental chant done with the tongue of thought during meditation. But in the Agra Radhaswami tradition, there is some emphasis on some verbal singing or chanting of the name Radhaswami. I remember reading about an ashram I've never been to, called Shabd Pratap Ashram, but I remember looking at their schedule once and seeing that they get up and meditate, and then at, I think it's 6 a.m., or let's just say 6 a.m., they do an hour of Radhaswami chant. They sing together as a group, as a morning satsang, as a part of their morning ashram program. An hour is devoted to chanting the name Radhaswami. So I took note of that. Here's an example of a group singing verbally, out loud, their sacred word. And here, Huzur Maharaj in this paragraph is saying that if you're having no luck going within, no luck meditating, you can recite a couple of hymns from the Sarbachan, read a couple of things from the holy books, and sing the name Radhaswami. That gives you something to do as a temporary practice until you can get back to focusing within during your meditation. And I just find that to be such a wonderful remedy, that meets people where they're at, here in the waking state of consciousness, on the physical plane, in the physical body, here and now in this life, and is a wonderful step, is a wonderful interim practice that will allow them to reset, refocus, and then begin with their, resume again their meditation practice, going within. In the Spiritual Seeker's Guide, a more recent Radhaswami publication in the same lineage of Huzur Maharaj Rai Saligram, it says, evolution has been a very slow process from the lower to the higher species. Nature is evolving man spiritually too. Even today, there are different grades of jivas. Many people are still worshipping stones, idols, rivers, trees, and animals. However, saints have appeared on this earth to evolve man spiritually from time to time. Then humanity was prepared to receive higher spiritual knowledge more quickly. The Radhaswami faith was revealed to humanity through Huzur Swami Ji Maharaj. Man is enmeshed in a number of problems and is in the grip of a great fear psychosis. Gradually, he will be made to realize the importance of the Radhaswami faith and the hidden truth embedded in the following verse from the Sarbachan prose. This world is perishable, and so are all worldly things. The wise man is he who realizes the transitory and illusory nature of this world and all things pertaining to it, and makes the best use of this body by worshiping the Supreme Being through bhajan and simran, meditation upon the inner sound, and the repetition of sacred name or sacred names of God. He thus derives benefit from all that the Creator, through His grace, has placed within the body, and takes that priceless jewel, the essence of all, the surat, the soul, to its real abode. That's actually a passage about the teachings of Swami Ji Maharaj, authored by Huzur Maharaj Rai Saligram in Volume 1 of Sarbachan Radhaswami prose. It's the opening verse. It's the beginning of the Gospel of Radhaswami, if you will. The world is perishable, and so are all worldly things. The wise one is he or she who realizes the transitory and illusory nature of this world and all things pertaining to it, and makes the best use of this human form by worshiping the Supreme Being through meditation upon the inner sound and the repetition of God's name, he thus derives benefit from all that the Creator, through his divine grace, has placed within this human form, and takes that priceless jewel, the essence of all, the attention faculty of the soul, to its real spiritual abode, its original home. You're hearing Spiritual Awakening Radio. We're just getting started exploring Prem Patra Radhasoami, the spiritual love discourses about Radha Swami, the Lord of the soul. Stay tuned for more coming up after this break. Before the break, I read from Sarbachan Radhaswami Prose, Book 1, a synopsis of the teachings of Swami Ji Maharaj of Agra by his main spiritual successor and disciple, Huzur Maharaj Rai Saligram. This time, I'm using the Dial-Bag translation in English of this paragraph. This world is perishable, and so are all worldly things. The wise man is he who realizes the transitory and illusory nature of this world and all things pertaining to it, and makes the best use of this body by worshipping the Supreme Being through bhajan and simran, the hearing of the inner sound in meditation and the repetition of God's name, in other words. He thus derives benefit from all that the Creator, through his grace, has placed in the body, and takes that priceless jewel, the essence of all, the surat, the soul, to its real abode. Unquote. Isn't it great having different translations of the same book when it's a somewhat difficult read, coming from another place, another time, another language originally, to discern a greater level of meaning? It's wonderful having multiple translations of the same book. I love uploading different versions of these books. I have them all online. The Maheshwari translations of the Prem Patra Radhasoami and the Sarbachan, and when available, the Dial-Bag ones. In the case of Sarbachan Radhasoami Prose, I have 4 translations of the prose uploaded to the Internet Archive, and I have 2 translations of the Radhaswami poetry of Swami Ji Maharaj, and at least 1 translation of all of the volumes of the Prem Patra Radhasoami volumes of Huzur Maharaj. In some cases, there are 2 different translations, the Swami Bag Maheshwari as well as the Dial-Bag translation. So at least 2 translations of the main focus of today's program, Prem Patra Radhasoami by Huzur Maharaj. Some commentary on that paragraph from Sarbachan Prose about the transitory nature of the world and how it's best to take this golden opportunity to focus upon God. This is from the Spiritual Seeker's Guide. We must dedicate our lives to the cause of truth and perform the spiritual practices sincerely and earnestly in our daily lives. Our worldly vocation, whatever it may be, will not suffer on account of the spiritual practices. However, spiritual evolution is a slow process. Those who are ripe and mature can only grasp this philosophy. Man's mind is very hard. It has to be softened by the repetition of the holy name, Radhaswami, and the contemplation of the holy form of the Master. Gradually, the mind will become malleable. Repetition of the holy name and contemplation of the holy form are part of bhakti, or love and devotion. The astral image of the Master appears at the spirit pole of the devotee. Deep concentration is required for the same. slowly and slowly, the cosmic sound starts reverberating within the devotee, and he forms contact with the parent sound, Radha Swami. This is a gift from the Master. Once this gift has been granted, redemption from the cycle of birth and death is assured. All worldly achievements are useless without attaining this goal of Jiva Mukti. For this, the company of the true spiritual master is essential. No doubt there are innumerable pseudo-masters in the world, but the true seeker is not satisfied so long as he does not find the true guide, and his search goes on. Nature so conspires that a pining soul, a yearning soul, does ultimately find the true master. Unquote. The Spiritual Seeker's Guide. The following reading is from Prem Patra Radhasoami, Volume 2, The Spiritual or Love Discourses About the Lord of the Soul by Huzur Maharaj, the architect of the Radhaswami faith. By turning and gradually elevating the mind and spirit inwards and upwards, bliss and pleasure, or ananda, will be experienced in greater and greater measure, and pain and suffering, anxieties and worries will be removed and minimized. It is therefore proper and necessary for all to apply themselves to the spiritual practices for their real good. In this world, all are working and trying day and night for securing bliss and happiness. They are also constantly making efforts to escape from sufferings or to remove sufferings. Whatever pleasures are procured here all pertain to mind and senses, i.e., they are enjoyed by the mind and the senses. They are short-lived and ephemeral. As regards sufferings of a serious type, such as obstinate diseases and death, they are incurable, and man has to undergo them willy-nilly. Even ordinary ailments cannot be removed or necessarily mitigated prematurely. The worldly and sensual pleasures are worthless and perishable because they are derived from material objects in which the spirituality is of a low order. This has been established that all pleasures, enjoyments, and tastes are experienced due to the presence of the spirit current at the sense organs. Hence, association of mind and spirit with the upward current rising from the plane of the senses to the higher regions will surely afford greater and unalloyed bliss, happiness, and joy. At that time, without having recourse to any other measure, bodily or mental suffering will be felt very little. It will be mitigated. It is incumbent upon every person to devote great attention to learning and practicing the spiritual exercises by which the direction of the spirit, mind, and senses be easily turned upwards to higher regions, and he may enjoy the bliss and pleasure of higher regions as long as he wishes and of his own accord, says Huzur Maharaj, describing meditation as a kind of bliss, or ananda as it is called in India. There is a spiritual bliss, and when one reaches the third eye and has a sense of that spiritual bliss, that's how you know you've reached the third eye. That's one of the signs that you've begun the transition into the world of within. After the break, I will continue exploring this discourse from Prem Patra Radhasoami. You're hearing Spiritual Awakening Radio. Stay tuned for more coming up. Readings today from Prem Patra Radhasoami, The Spiritual Love Discourses of the Lord of the Soul by Huzur Maharaj, Rai Saligram Bahadur, who I describe as the architect of the Radha Swami faith, the one who wrote all of these wonderful volumes cataloging the teachings of the Sant tradition, never before spelled out in writing, certainly not in English, all for the first time in his 6-volume set, Prem Patra. But he wrote many other books too. It's more like 6 times 6. He wrote many volumes, many of which are now in English and are online. I've uploaded many to the Internet Archive. There are some at Scribd as well, and you'll find links to them in the Radhaswami section of my Sant Radhaswami e-library. Before the break, I was reading from a discourse from Volume 2 about how, by turning and gradually elevating the mind and spirit inwards and upwards, bliss and pleasure can be experienced in greater and greater measure, and pain and suffering, anxieties and worries will be removed and minimized. It is therefore proper, says Huzur Maharaj, and necessary for all to apply themselves to this spiritual technique for their real good. I was sharing before the break about how there is a bliss that can be noticed as you reach the third eye center and invert, meaning go within, reverse the direction of perception from the outer world to the world of within. You can get a sense of that, a feeling of bliss and one-pointed attention as you reach the third eye center. Huzur Maharaj said, "The worldly and sensual pleasures are worthless and perishable because they are derived from material objects in which the spirituality is of a low order. This has been established, that all pleasures, enjoyments, and tastes are experienced due to the presence of the spirit current at the sense organs, the level of the sense organs. Hence, association of mind and spirit with the upward current rising from the plane of the senses to higher regions will surely afford greater and unalloyed bliss, happiness, and joy. At that time, without having recourse to any other measure, bodily or mental suffering will be felt very little. It will be mitigated. It is incumbent upon every person to devote great attention to learning and practicing the spiritual exercises by which the direction of the spirit, mind, and senses can be easily turned upwards to higher regions, and he may enjoy the bliss and pleasure of higher regions as long as he wishes and of his own accord. It is to be noted that this method affords greater and greater bliss and joy, and at the same time mitigates worry and pain instantly. Thus it affords doable benefit. The method consisting in fixing the mind and spirit at a high center and applying the same attentively to the holy form of the Sant Guru according to the instructions laid down by Sants at the time of initiation. They should be elevated along the current of Shabd, the sound current, which is resounding within everyone at all times. This is meditation and Sarit Shabd Yoga. Param Parush Radhaswami Dayal, the Supreme Being, compassionate Lord of the soul, has made it so very easy that everyone, be he child, youth, old, male, female, householder, or ascetic, literate or illiterate, can perform it with ease and comfort, without any risk or danger, and can soon experience its effect and benefit within himself or herself. By performing this very practice, a person can raise his mind and spirit stage by stage and get out of the regions of Maya or illusion. He can secure true redemption from the bondages of body and the attendant pains and pleasures. Thus, progressing upwards, he can reach the region of pure spirit and have the darshan or vision of his true parent, the Supreme Being, Sat Purush Radhaswami Dayal, and be freed from death and decay. What has been stated above can be duly verified by a practitioner during this very life by performing the spiritual exercises for some time. Some bliss and joy are obtained immediately on commencing this practice. There can be no better proof of the superiority of this practice. The Supreme Father Radhaswami Dayal has been exceedingly beneficent on the jiva souls of these times, that he has made this practice so very easy that everybody can easily derive benefit from it. It is now incumbent on jiva souls to consider carefully wherein lies their real gain and loss. They spend their whole life in toiling and laboring hard for procuring pleasures and comforts in the world, which are all utterly insignificant and perishable. Then how very necessary and proper it is to apply themselves to the work of attaining an everlasting and perfect bliss, so that they may become free forever from pain and the pleasure of recurrent births. Unquote. Huzur Maharaj, Saligram. Prem Patra, Volume 2. Escaping reincarnation through Jiva Mukti, the liberation of the soul. By merging back in God during life, one stays merged with God in the next life. What you are now is what you'll be then. What you find, as Kabir once said, what you find now is what you'll find then. What we are attached to in life, we remain attached to in the beyond. If that is the absolute, Supreme Lord of the soul, we go to the realm of the Lord of the soul, Radhaswami Dayal, or Sachkhand, the spiritual plane. I really appreciate Huzur Maharaj's compassion. He is writing to everyday folk. He is not writing to ascetic, athletic, yogi, off-worlder astronauts of mysticism. He is writing to everyday people and trying to make the path work for them. You're hearing Spiritual Awakening Radio. More readings from the teachings of Huzur Maharaj coming up after this break. Back in the 1920s on the west coast of the U.S., you had Paramhansa Yogananda living near Hollywood and was one of the very first gurus to be filmed. And in fact, there are some films of him that seem like modern-day recordings, like someone with a camcorder, only in black and white. There were some gurus, some influences from India on the west coast. The Vedanta Society was another influence. And there was a book that appeared back in the early decades of the 20th century, a book from India called Radhaswami Mat Prakash, written in English, authored in the English language by Huzur Maharaj, Saligram, the successor of Swami Ji Maharaj, who operated a satsang in Agra, India, and was a kind of architect of the Radhaswami faith, the Radhaswami branch of Sant Mat, the Sant tradition of India, or path of the masters. This book, Radhaswami Mat Prakash, was first read on the west coast of the U.S. by spiritual seekers living in California, Washington State, Oregon, and British Columbia, the very first Sant Mat book to appear in the English language. The title of the book, Radhaswami Mat Prakash, means light upon the teachings of the Lord of the soul, and served as a kind of introduction to the Radhaswami faith. The following is from Radhaswami Mat Prakash, the very first Sant Mat book to be authored in English that appeared during the early decades of the 20th century, authored by Huzur Maharaj, Saligram. The advisability of awakening and developing spiritual powers. Observation number 1. The human spirit, being native of pure spiritual regions and a denizen on this earth, it becomes necessary for its rest and comfort that it should try to return to its source, where alone it can enjoy pure spiritual happiness permanently. Observation 2. The human spirit, being mostly attached and confined to this world through the senses of sight, hearing, and taste, it can easily release itself from the bondage of body and pleasures of this world by turning these very senses upwards within itself, whereby it could see higher objects, hear heavenly sounds, and taste the nectar of life which flows from higher regions in the brain. Love for the Supreme Being. This practice of inner light and sound meditation, or Surat Shabd Yoga, can be easily conducted and comfortably if the devotee has a little love for the Supreme Being. Without love, it will be too hard and difficult to practice Surat Shabd Yoga with any good result to be obtained within a short time. The Supreme Being, being a boundless ocean of spirit or love, and the human being, being a drop or current of spirit or love from this very same ocean, and love being the very essence and means of existence of the whole creation, it follows that no effort in any direction, temporal or spiritual, unless actuated by love or affectionate regard, can be crowned with success, and the work or labor rendered easy, sweet, and harmonious. Love is most sublime, having its origin in the highest region, the abode of the Supreme Being. In whatever heart it springs up, it will gradually raise and carry the fortunate possessor of this lofty and noble passion to the highest region. All good qualities and goodness itself will gradually find their home in the heart in which love dwells, and all bad qualities will be rooted out by and by. Whatever a human being full of love thinks or does is all wisdom, while the thoughts and works of the worldly wise persons are full of selfishness and folly. Knowledge without love for the Supreme Being is futile and tends towards untruth or darkness or materialism, while love turns everything to good use and leads to enlightenment and truth. Even worldly love is attended with goodness, happiness, and comfort to all concerned. How much more good would then result to humanity in general if the same love becomes spiritual and directed towards the Supreme Being, the merciful, compassionate, kind parent of the whole creation. Where pure love dwells, there sheds the light of grace as it forms a link with the spirit or love current from its source, the Supreme Being. Such is the strength and effect of affection and kind treatment that it subdues ferocity and other injurious and dangerous characteristics in beasts and other animals. That is to say, they begin to love and have an affectionate regard. A heart devoid of love or affection is as hard as stone and does not form a suitable receptacle for the light of heavenly grace and compassion. Sincere love is reciprocal, so if one has a heart full of love for the Supreme Being, one is sure to be attracted towards Him by grace, mercy, and holy light, which will gradually illumine his inner self, and then all menial and worldly affections and desires will gradually disappear. Love, or the power of attraction, is the basis of the whole creation and the cause of its sustenance and preservation. Some verses from Huzur Maharaj's spiritual classic, Radhaswami Mat Prakash. Light on the teachings of the Lord of the Soul. Today on Spiritual Awakening Radio. My name is James Bean. If you'd like links to these books, you can read them all for free online. Send me an email or a text. I'll send you a link to the Radhaswami section of my e-library and some other Radhaswami e-libraries so you can enjoy the writings of Prem Patra Radhasoami, Sarbachan Radhaswami, Radhaswami Mat Prakash, and other spiritual classics of the Agra Radhaswami tradition. Send me an email at this address, james@spiritualawakeningradio.com, james@spiritualawakeningradio.com, or text me at this number, 508-603-9381. Visit my website, spiritualawakeningradio.com. Click on the library tab, which is gradually being transformed in the weeks and months and years to come. A lot of links to revise and update and add, and books to upload, things to do. It's quite a lifelong task creating an online e-library and keeping it up to date and adding more books to it, and then linking to it on the web at various sites. Once again, my email address is james@spiritualawakeningradio.com. My website is spiritualawakeningradio.com. There is a donate button at the website. There are links to my blog at Blogger, as well as at WordPress. Tune in again next week at this same time for another edition of Spiritual Awakening Radio.